I wonder if I should have written up my thoughts.
I tried to write up a whole bunch of pros and cons the other day, but I ended up writing mostly cons. I have one pro.
Hello everyone and welcome to the 49th episode of Sonic Talk, and with me tonight as always is Alex Peel and GX Echidna.
You see, this is what happens whenever you people tell Sega you want Sonic Adventure 3. You get Sonic Forces.
And with us is a special guest. You might have seen his work on the last episode, the image header of Rouge dressed in Hooters.
Yes, that
Cory Holmes. Jet, how you doing, Cory?
Oh, I'm doing alright.
I thought after that art you are banned from all Sonic Talk relations.
Hey, it's the one I asked for. I was joking, about the whole Hooters thing, so of course
Jason, you're also banned.
You can't ban me for my own show.
Wait, this was all a joke? I thought it was serious. I put effort into that. I guess next time I'll just draw stick figures and call it a day.
I would appreciate that.
Before we get into the news and, of course, the main topic, which is a certain game that was released this week, we'll go into what we've been playing. I think we might want to start topping with what I think is the game of the year, Super Mario Odyssey. And it is just pure joy in a video game cartridge. I just absolutely love every bit of this game. It's just amazing.
Wasn't as good as Super Mario Galaxy, in my opinion. But, it was pretty damn good.
Oh boy, great Discord here going on.
What I like is every 3D level that usually comes out has a big collectathon in it, and usually the collectathon feels like a massive chore. It does not feel fun. In this game, it's constantly fun. It's constantly rewarding. You're looking around with every nook and cranny, and almost every nook and cranny either has a purple coin for that kingdom, or a moon, or, extra coins that you might need for your clothing outfits. And I love the feeling of these two different virtual currencies where normally some other video game company would use that for microtransactions, where here you just collect it naturally and you're using it to unlock costumes and little bits of merchandise for the inside of your little floating ship and what have you.
Souvenirs.
Well,
souvenirs. Yeah, exactly. Souvenirs.
Thankfully, Nintendo isn't doing loot boxes yet, so let's cross our fingers that they don't start.
I mean, we've already made it to the world of Animal Crossing Mobile and Fire Emblem Gachapon, so we're not that far off. That far off.
But if they just keep that stuff to their shitty cell phone... Oh, no, I'm kidding. Their cell phone games, then it's fine. But
I've kind of compared this game to going to a Disney theme park, because
that's a good analogy.
If you've ever had the experience of going specifically to a Disney theme park, they're very very dense places with lots of things to look at and a lot of things that you could miss going throughout. And the actual moons in this game, the main collectibles replacing stars or shines or whatever you want to call it, don't represent something to collect so much as just saying, you've done the thing. You've found the thing, or you've done the thing, or you've achieved the thing. And it's a bit more rewarding than, say, something like a Banjo-Kazooie, which has a very similar structure, but kind of feels a little less dense. Rewarding, maybe, but I was going to say more like there's a lot of things to do in every single one of those worlds in Mario, which is probably why there are, about 10 or 15?
I think about 10 kingdoms, maybe. There's two more that I know of that unlock after game. One that unlocks instantly and one that unlocks after 250 moons.
I heard that there was something after you've collected all of the moons, and it's been described to me as like a gauntlet with no save flags or anything.
And what I love is most of these 3D platformers, once I beat the game, unless they have some extra stuff in it, I'm not really felt to compelled to collect everything here. I keep wanting to collect everything just because I know it's just around the corner. It's real close, you know?
It's a good long-term game that you could probably go out and get all the stars right then and there. But because of the nature of the console itself, it's also a great game that you could just get one or two more moons in an area and then shut it off and move on to whatever you're doing, and then just come back to it and get one or two more and continue on that way. It gives you some nice conveniences as well to try to give you hints, since there are so many things to find in the whole world.
Oh yeah, it's constantly give you hints. Your amiibos can give you hints, and it can give you powers if you're having a little bit of trouble.
And it can give you a wedding dress.
Yes, Mario can wear a wedding dress throughout the thing. I have to laugh because people are always comparing this Mario to like knocking off Sonic Adventure in certain ways, and I gotta laugh because you got a city with photorealistic people where Mario's a cartoon, which is
that is kind of weird.
Upsetting. Sonic can roll now. He's got a flower. He's got a flower and specific levels where he speeds up and he's running through the level as fast as humanly possible.
I mean that was in Galaxy 2 though.
And the final thing is, this is a little bit of spoiler for you because I know you're at the moon, but right near the end of the game, suddenly a J-pop song just comes on out of nowhere.
Yeah. I do enjoy that song.
And it's a cute song. I'm like, what the hell? Where did this come from? It really comes out of nowhere. You're just going along, and all of a sudden, this song pops up.
Who the hell threw more Sonic Adventure into my Mario?
Yeah, he's rolling. He's going through a city. He's got J-pop in the background.
Now, hold the phone now. I would adore the Sonic Adventure soundtrack.
To me, it more reminds me of something like one of those vocal tracks from the original Sonic Adventure.
It's kind of cheesy pop. Yeah, and it does sound like something that would come out of Sonic Adventure. I don't know.
You mean exactly atonal and unlistenable?
Hey, there's some good music in that game. You shut up.
You mean like the theme songs?
There are vocal Sonic songs that I will admit I like and are very cheesy. None of them are from Sonic Adventure.
Now, I'm not really a huge fan of collectathon platformers. I've tried getting into the N64 platformers over the years, and I just couldn't get myself to care to get the jiggy pieces or whatever, you know. And so for me, the Super Mario Odyssey's platforming isn't quite as satisfying as Super Mario Galaxy. But the ingenuity with a lot of the world design and how you get most of the moons and the challenges that most of the moons involved, this is like probably the first collectathon platformer that I have found satisfying to play. And for me, for this kind of game, that's huge praise. Like, for me, this is probably my third favorite Sonic game after Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. God damn it. Third Mario game after Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. I like it way better than Sunshine and 64. Like it better than 3D 3D World. And it's just like a few smidgens below both the Galaxy games. But it really is incredible what Nintendo has managed to do with this genre.
I like Galaxy 2 as much as Galaxy. This is either tied or above Galaxy for me.
I find it kind of funny that we've talked about the structure of the game, but we have not yet mentioned the actual core conceit of the game.
You mean catching?
Which is the ability to possess enemies or objects in the world using your magical ghost hat.
I admit that does result in some of the best moments in this.
It results in constantly changing how you control and play the character, which is just amazing. You're always doing something new that you've never tried before.
The interesting thing about the Super Mario Odyssey is that it doesn't have traditional power-ups like past Mario games. There's no Metal Mario, no Fire Mario, no Tanuki Mario, no Soups. It's just the power-ups are all just in the enemies that you can possess. And like some of them, like the Goombas, they're just kind of these simple things that you can jump, that you can just jump around and stack on top of each other. But then there's ones like those birds that shoot out the spears out of their face, and so you can flick them up the wall, resulting in some really fascinating platforming. And the bullet bills, which allows you to soar around in platforming areas and get to hidden areas. It's just a really creative mechanic. I do kind of miss certain things like the fire flower, though, but catchy mechanic is way better.
I kind of wish it did a little bit more to encourage you to try to take those powers out of the area or take them to a different location. It does some, but it doesn't do it quite often. I'm guessing in some ways that's a way to try to gate it, to make sure that you're at least doing the challenges instead of breaking. But I do kind of wish that they gave you some options for some clever breaking.
I will say that this is not as nearly experimental as Breath of the Wild. And I do think Breath of the Wild is better than this game, partially because of that.
Breath of the Wild has a very interesting chemistry system of how different materials interact with different materials and what you can then use them for. Things like fire and electricity and water flotation and magnetism. This game has a lot of interesting things, and it has a lot of funny things, but it is a situation where it's funny because it's meant to be funny. Whereas Breath of the Wild it's funny because of circumstance.
But what's the favorite? Not counting the end game stuff, by the way, Jason. What is your favorite thing that you've caught in this game?
The favorite thing that I've caught?
Yeah, again, ignoring the end game stuff.
Oh, that's a good. I think like you were talking about earlier, the birds that you spike into the wall and flick up, because that's a really fun gameplay mechanic. I'm trying to think of something else. Oh, I love the photorealistic dinosaur, the T-Rex that you suddenly. And I love just making him wake up and smash through everything in the tire area. And that part's just really good. And it's so out of the ordinary because we have Yoshi, who's a cute little dinosaur, and here in this game it's a photorealistic dinosaur. This may be the most bizarre and just go with it, in terms of design they've done in a Mario game.
Oh, it's just a big Yoshi from the Mario movie.
Corey, wait. Yeah, I guess it could have been T-Rex, actually. GX.
I also enjoy piling on the Goombas to try to...
Okay, I asked what your favorite one was. Chris, what's yours?
I gotta say, I kind of do like what Jason was about to say in regard to the Goombas, but it might be the Goombas or the Paragoombas or something kind of funny about the zippers.
What's the zipper? Oh, wait, like the literal zippers. Okay.
The literal zipper.
No, that was mostly in the water world.
Yeah.
In the lake world.
Well, I'm a little surprised no one else has mentioned this, but my favorite one is those weird water octopus things from the beach world. Like, maybe it's just because I love jetting around and I love some of the challenges center around them, but they are just really fun to control.
They are, and they do build a whole boss battle around them, which is a really good boss battle.
Oh yeah. Chris, what's your what game have you been playing?
So, whenever I saw this game starting to get a little bit of buzz to it, I originally saw it on a stream, and I heard a bit about it. This is a harmonics game, and it's a mobile game. And the big key to it is that it requires a really big Bluetooth console that goes with it. For those people watching the video version, I'm holding it up, but basically it's this massive black console with forced flat spaces for cards on it. This is a game called Drop Mix.
Oh, I heard about this.
I have not.
Drop Mix is a game, but also a very interesting toy. The premise of the game is that you get, with the starter pack, several cards, and each of those cards represents a track in a song. Like if you think of a rock band track, how you have vocals, drums, bass, and lead guitar, that kind of stuff. Each one of the cards themselves represents a loop of one of those tracks, one of the vocals, one of the bass, one of the beat. The trick is that as you play the game, you're placing them down from different songs. So you might have the vocals of one song going together with the beat track of another song, with the bass of a completely different song, with the lead guitar of an even different song, and it just kind of mixes together. It adjusts the tempo so that they all fit together. It adjusts the tone to kind of match what's going on. And from there, it just kind of creates an interest. It's a way to create mixes. Like, it is literally, its name is Drop Mix, and you create mixes. The game itself, I would say, is fine. If you like tabletop games, it's not going to be the deepest tabletop game out there. It's not bad. It's kind of... It doesn't feel like there's a big, deep strategy associated with it. The premise of the game is whenever you have a card, you can only play a card of a certain color on top of certain spaces on the board. And if you want to place a card on top of another card, it has to be the same level or higher. So you kind of work towards earning points by covering up your opponent's cards with your own, making them take cards off the board, or using certain special powers that certain cards offer. I've been able to create some pretty fun mixes with it. Like I said, the game is fun. The game is fine, but you really have to appreciate it as kind of a toy, because it is a somewhat fun game, but it is a really fun, interesting toy to just take a big stack of cards, place them on, change what the track is, listen to the vocals of I'm Sexy and I Know It with the bass track of September, and just see how that kind of plays out and see what happens then. The other aspect of it is it's not a cheap game. If you can,
it's $100 for the starter set, right?
It's $100 for the starter kit. With the starter kit, you get 60 cards, which is enough for 4 4-player decks or 2 2-player decks. And decks themselves are going to be either 15 cards if you're playing with 4 players, or 30 cards if you're playing with 2 players. Or you can mix and match and say 2 people on one team and 1 person on the other team, 15, 15, and 30. So I like that it kind of adapts that way, but it gives you enough to at least play a 4-player game. And then what you do following that is you can buy playlist packs, which are about, I think, $15 each, and you get a full set of 15 cards plus 1 bonus card that go with a certain genre or a set and have certain songs in it. Then to break it down further, and this is the part I'm not a huge fan of, but it's better than it could be, they have sort of like booster packs. If you've ever played Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or anything like that, you're used to the concept of the booster pack. But their booster packs are different, because each of their booster packs contain the same exact cards, but there are multiple of those different types of booster packs. So if you have a booster pack with 1 card art on the front, you'll know that every other booster pack with that art on the front contains the same exact cards, which is kind of nice because they average out in price to about $1 per card, whichever way you decide to go and get them. So I spent quite a bit on it, but I've also enjoyed it quite a bit, and I look forward to playing it some more in the future, just playing with it.
Well, that's good. Though it sounds completely out of my wheelhouse.
Like I said,
I've saw some stuff on it, and it looks interesting, but not really something I want to spend that kind of money on.
So, Jet, Cory, do you feel like talking about anything you've been playing?
Well, after playing a considerable amount of Shadow of Mordor, I finally started getting into that game. I got a Switch for my birthday, which, by the way, thank you once again for that, Alex.
You're welcome.
I had to put some thought into what game I was going to get. I honestly haven't enjoyed a Mario game all that much since Super Mario 64. And I didn't think that I would be able to get into Breath of the Wild so soon after having played quite a bit of Shadow of Mordor. So I decided to get something a little bit older, Disgaea 5, which I don't know if anyone has played the series here, but it's a game series that's been around since the PlayStation 2. And graphically, it's not really anything all that impressive. To be honest, they could have put this on the PlayStation 3 and it would have looked just as good. But it's a tactical RPG, I think is the correct term for it. It's kind of like Shining Force, if anyone's ever played that, only it's not... you select what moves your characters are going to do all in one turn instead of moving one character, waiting for your enemy to make their move, and then moving another character.
It's also got a sense of humor.
Yeah, it's got a pretty PG-13 sense of humor all around.
So, Jet, I have never actually played a Disgaea game, but they have a legacy about them that they are kind of weird in their pacing as it pertains to grinding. How do you feel like that as someone who's played a little bit more of them than me?
Unfortunately, I can really get into grinding, so it doesn't bother me, but it is a really grind-heavy game, so I can definitely see where it might not be an appeal for somebody who cares for that. But one thing that I think makes it a little bit more convenient is especially in the later games, they make this easy, but you can level up your enemies to make them stronger so that you can go in and grind a little bit faster. Then you can turn the level back down and progress through it on the normal difficulty. But if you spend enough time grinding, and I find it easier to do this with one character, it can basically break the game. You can walk in, take a casual stroll through the final boss, and then you go through with the extra content, which does tend to be much harder than the final boss. But
weren't you telling me about this one guy who had like an attack that took off 25 million HP or something?
No. This is something from the extra content, and I believe this is in several, if not all, of the Disgaea games where you have to fight an overlord called Ball. And his attack is around 29 million. Yeah, and I haven't even reached 1 million yet with my strongest character, and my defense isn't even up to that par. So there's no way I can do that in the near future. I'd have to grind forever or something.
Are you playing the Switch version then? Because I know there is a Disgaea Switch game, I believe.
Yeah, that's the Switch game. It was on. It's on PS4 as well. So.
Okay. I think you put 100 hours into this game so far.
Yeah, I just started playing it, and then one day I look, and it's 95 hours, and now I'm 10 hours later than that.
So what's this about not feeling ready for Breath of the Wild again?
It's just because I was playing some Shadow of Mordor, it's a bit open worldy, so I kind of just wanted to take a break from that kind of game. An open world game, not necessarily,
I don't know. I think if 100 hours, you might be ready. You might be ready, man.
Yeah, but I gotta wait on that. I need more money first.
Yeah. Now, I've also been playing a Switch game recently, aside from Sonic and Mario. I've been playing Doom.
So have I.
I've been playing Doom lately, and let me tell you that game plays great on the Switch. The Doom is really different from other first-person shooters in one key respect, and it's a respect that I love. It is a game that accommodates just running through an area and just shooting enemies. constantly, over and over again, not taking cover, not like popping out and taking shots at the other thing, just running around and killing everything. And this game just replicates the flow of the Xbox One / PS4 version perfectly, despite the fact that it's on a gosh darn portable. And so, like, if you just love single player for FPS, I can't recommend Doom enough. Like, even graphically, like the textures have taken a huge downgrade from the Xbox One. The frame rate is 30, sometimes drops lower. The resolution is typically at about 600p. But
yeah, that's
what bothers you. Then go get this. It's still a lot of fun despite the graphical downgrades.
That's my one issue, is that on portable it looks so fantastic because you're looking at this small screen. You don't see a lot of heavy details, but sometimes as I'm playing it on docked mode, it kind of hurts my eyes a little just because it has this dynamic resolution where it can go from like 700p, 720p to as low as 600 or 500p. Sometimes they said it can go as low as 360p sometimes.
Wow!
Depending on how severe how severe the action is or the scenes are.
That seems like a really weird way to handle the graphics processing if it's trying to process too much, is to dynamically reduce the frame rate. That seems.
I think anything like not the frame rate, the resolution.
Or I'm sorry, the resolution. The resolution.
Yeah.
Frame rate would make more sense to me than it would readjusting the whole resolution of the screen.
Yeah, it works a certain way in the game, but I heard like 360p is very, very rare.
I haven't noticed anything like that.
But there's times when I'm looking at it on the screen in docked mode, and it just seems like there's a Vaseline smear almost on the screen.
Well,
where other times it does look sharper and it looks fine. And it's something I do not notice at all when playing on portable mode because it's a low resolution screen, plus it's a smaller screen in general.
I've been playing this game constantly. Well, not constantly, but I've mostly been playing this game in dock mode, so that I utilize the Pro Controller. I haven't really been noticing the resolution getting that bad.
I haven't seen it getting that bad, but I have seen it get down to 600, almost to 500p. Well, it would go sharper than a little fuzzy, and then sharper than a little fuzzy.
I think we've kind of established in the past that of all of us, Jason tends to be the most sensitive to that.
I'm a bit of a graphics whore at times. Although I wish that when they patch, it comes with a first day patch, and they don't tell you that the patch download includes the multiplayer. That's like 14 gigs that you don't need. So I wish they would have said that separately. That said, I played the multiplayer, and it is a blast. I mean, really? My kind of multiplayer is run and gun. I hate hate people who camp. I hate people who snipe. I don't like that kind of stuff. I just want to, just run around and gun. And it has this Quake 3 arena feel to it that I really enjoy. My particular guy was into Arsenal, so I had either a submachine gun or I had a rocket launcher to attack with. And you have one item where you can see everyone on the map if they're close enough proximity to you. They come in bright red. And that was just the run and gun gameplay. That was just an absolute blast. Plus, while you're in that team deathmatch mode, every once in a while a giant demon will pop up, and you kind of stop fighting your enemies and actually help them fight the demon. You almost all team up together to get rid of that demon, and that adds up to extra score. Also, I haven't played arcade mode, but that looks like fun.
This game seems built for arcade mode. I hope there's some sort of multiplayer score multiplier in that version.
I think there is, and they do have rewards.
This game feels built for that.
You will not find a better looking portable game on anywhere than this. If you're playing it on the road, if you're playing it, in handheld mode, there's nothing better graphically. It's just amazing. Yeah. And with that, I'll say now the third parties, if they can get Doom and Wolfenstein 2 on the Switch, other third parties have no more excuses for not porting their consoles, really.
Capcom does.
An important thing to note
regarding... Now, why does Capcom have a problem?
Because Sony gave them a bushel of money not to put Monster Hunter on it.
Is that why there's no Monster Hunter on Switch in America? The Generations port.
Who knows why? Who knows why Double Cross isn't out with that? But I certainly know it's why we're not getting the MMO on Switch.
An important thing to note regarding both Wolfenstein 2 and Doom is that they're both built on this engine that is very scalable. Not all games are built on that kind of technology. So, unfortunately, I think a lot of third parties do still have that excuse, especially Square with their huge, gorgeous open-world Final Fantasy games. I don't think we're getting FF15 on this thing anytime soon, even though they're trying.
Anyway, that's the last I'm going to say about that. We'll go into the news real quick, and then on to Sonic Forces. Hey, here's something that's never happened before. A Sonic game has leaked early. Oh my god, how did this possibly happen?
2 times in 1 year. Jesus Christ, Sega. Or Nintendo. Somebody.
And I guess the Switch version came out in was it New York?
New York.
Somebody grabbed that and streamed it early. At least this time they didn't have a bunch of racist epithets going on in the background.
Oddly enough, the only place I had issues dodging spoilers from was the Skype chat with Sonic Stadium people and Jason, who had to watch an hour of it and then talk about it.
Hey, I gave no story spoilers.
Yeah.
By the way, I was originally kind of hyped on it because there were certain stages in that first hour that looked really great. And then when I played them, they were not so great, particularly the 2D parts, but I guess I'll go into that later.
I happily ignored everything.
Speaking of forces, before we go into the main forces talk,
there's your favorite
DLC
thing,
leaks, because of course when people got the PC version, they tore it into the data files to find out what was there. And the one thing that was not really news because it was leaked by Sega earlier in the patch notes is that there's going to be a Supersonic DLC, where you'll be able to play as Supersonic in Sonic's levels. I don't know if this means we're going to have a Supersonic story mode like Shadowed had.
I doubt it.
But you'll be able to play as Sonic even though you haven't collected any Chaos Emeralds. So
on top of that, there's also Chris's favorite thing, meme shirts.
It's not the worst. I mean...
Oh, gosh darn it.
I would rather... Honestly, this is better than anything that they've done in regard to Big the Cat. Like, this is fine. This is not a big deal. They took something and they just put it in the game, and I sometimes like that reference sometimes, as long as it's not shoved down my throat, and I don't consider it being shoved down my throat.
Well,
does the original child artist who made that get any compensation for it?
I don't think so. No. I'm not sure about the legal stuff.
Of course, I don't know where the original art came from. It's just a child's Sonic art.
Is it a child Sonic art? Because
generally, I do think it's bad ethics for a company to take fan art and utilize it. Like this, but I don't know how I feel about this one.
In Sonic All-Stars Racing.
Well, in fairness, I think that was a mistake. I think
the one game that made Sonic Underground canon.
Speaking of this, is a little bit of news. Some of the promotional material for the Sonic Forces mobile game, Sonic Forces Speed Battle, had digital fan art used to promote it without the artist's consent, which is a shock.
Marketers, stop doing that. I don't know what.
It's these marketers that are doing Google Image without really checking, the facts and everything.
I do hope that they've checked out the legalities behind that Sonic art, because oh boy.
Please tell me that Sega owns the trademark for that word.
Sonic? I haven't heard about that. So oh god, they could be screwed.
Wouldn't that be the best thing for them to get sued over?
Yeah. Certainly better than getting sued over a bunch of Knuckles clones and
we learned that maybe like some sort of internet networking company owns the word Sonic, and Sega somehow gets so many lawsuits over it.
So Sonic Forces talk, yeah? That's like the reason why we're here.
You mean that thing we've been avoiding talking about this entire time? It's like, hey, okay, look, Sonic Forces, this is part of the news, but we can't talk about Sonic Forces. Now we can talk about Sonic Forces.
Well, yeah, that's how our podcast is structured.
That's chaos. That is utter chaos. My God.
Yeah, Sonic Forces up to the plate is pile of garbage. No,
chaos is a letter.
I guess a lot of people want me to go first because
I nominate Chris.
Pretty vocal. Or okay,
do it.
Okay, you nominate me. So do we? I guess Jet would. Cory would be my second on that one. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I will not squander this nomination, and I hope going forward, whenever you go into the polls, you'll act with your heart and your head.
This joke is stupid.
Yeah, it is stupid.
This is a Jason Berry joke, Chris. This is a Jason Berry joke. Stop it.
Jason says the joke and then moves on, and it's a really bad joke. I'm taking it too far. That's my thing.
All right. So this is like a super Jason joke.
Sonic Forces, my experience with it was very much a low moving to a eventual middle. I'm kind of enjoying this situation. Whenever I came to that game, I saw everything that you guys have said about it and your experience with it. I heard a lot of, we'll say, generally negative attitudes. I was kind of coming into it thinking, the thing I'm expecting from this is the next Sonic Generations, because that's the way it looks. On the surface, it 100% looks like the next Sonic Generations. And whenever I took that attitude towards it, I was finding the experience really, really rough and bad and not what I'm looking for at all. I think there was a point in which I just kind of accepted, no, this is not the next Sonic Generations. I took it more as, this is a big, dumb, overly self-serious action movie that also occasionally has platforming. And whenever I got to that point and kind of understood whether this is what the game wants to be, this is what it is, that's the point in which I actually started to garner a bit more enjoyment, knowing that, no, actually, I don't have to play this as much as I am, because the game seems interested in mostly playing itself most of the time. Don't get me wrong. It would be nice if my game was more of a game. That's typically what I buy games for, and that is probably one of the biggest knocks that I could make against it. But at the same time, when it is just playing itself, it does look real nice. The stuff going on is legitimately entertaining what's going on, unless characters are talking. Almost like an Asura's Wrath. And obviously, it doesn't have the sheer stupidity of Asura's Wrath, although occasionally it does with the dialogue. It's kind of where I found my happy medium.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the thing is, if you're expecting Generations 2, it's not gonna live up to that. It's not really gonna live up to.
It doesn't have the design. It doesn't have the style. It doesn't have. Surprisingly, it doesn't have the controls.
No, it doesn't.
That might be my other big criticism. Maybe not necessarily what it is, but what it isn't, in terms of they made a primarily good controlling Sonic game
3 times
games ago,
in a row.
Well, I'm going to say Generations specifically because Generations was a very specific feel of a game, and this game really seems like it wants to ape Generations at times, but I have no freaking clue why they would go with a different engine for it or a different set of physics for this engine. It doesn't make sense. They even put that game on PC, so you know it's portable to other modern consoles.
Yeah, it looks like Generations, but it doesn't feel like Generations in any way. It's something I put in the list that it does not live up to its legacy of boost games. It is not as good as Unleashed. It's not as good as Colors, and it's not as good as Generations. Yet this one had the most development lead time up to any of those. Because I mean, they hadn't had a game since 2013's Sonic Lost World, unless you count Sonic Runners. They had probably a small team on that. They had all this time, and yet this feels like a B team project. Like they took a small team to make this one. Like maybe I'm wrong, and they are actually working on a much bigger game for a year or two or from now, and this is their B game. But after 4 years, you should expect something that not only looks like it, but controls and works like it, and this does not. This is like a step or two back without really, maybe not even half a step forward, except for some minor things.
I've had it implied to me, and I haven't really found anything to really corroborate this, but someone implied to me before that there was a lot of, we'll say, conflict within the development itself of the direction of the game, and if that's true, I think that would explain a lot about it, because I guess the other thing that you could primarily say about it is it feels inconsistent and confused in tone, in design, in graphic design. It's kind of all over the place in all aspects of it.
That's another thing I actually put on my little list here. Yeah. I mean, here's an example. Very late in the game, I think it was level 24, 25. I'm playing Classic Sonic, and he's got an auto-scrolling level. It's a little tough. It was a little challenging, especially right at the end. where you're doing the spinning wheels while it's scrolling, and I'm trying to go up and get this red ring and still go. I had problems with that, but it wasn't much. The Classic Sonic's physics are okay. It's the only one that really works okay in 2D for me, anyway.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with that, but continue.
But there's one thing about Classic Sonic that pisses me off, and that's if you can run full blast, but if you're not rolling, you're not going to make a little half pipe, which is crazy. But I have a difficult time through it. I get through it in it takes me 10 minutes. That's how bad of a time I was having with this one section, and I'm like, oh, finally. Then I play a modern Sonic level right after that, and I swear to God, I beat it in less than 1 minute and 30 seconds and got every single red ring along the way.
Wow.
What the hell? I was like, what the hell?
I beat it fast, but I didn't get that many red rings.
Yeah, I got it every single red ring, there's none hidden. They're right in front of you while I'm going up this, and I'm like, what kind of design is that? This is late in the game. I'm expecting it to be difficult, and except this is a super easy modern Sonic level right after I had a really difficult classic level. And that's another thing. The difficulty spikes feel like they're all over the map, or most of them are in the later stages, but there's some in the early ones. And the level designs feel like they took a team of 3, and each person got their own levels to design, and they just threw them in at any random stage.
Yeah, there is
when a movie's being produced and they take the scenes at random instead of from beginning to end.
Like, there is no flow to the difficulty in this game. Like, remember how when we were talking about the level design last month, I was talking about Sunset Heights and said this is probably an early level in the game.
No, it's level 15.
Yeah, like it is smack dab in the middle of the game. In the middle of the game, and like there were more difficult levels before and after it. And it's like, what the hell is this doing in the middle of the game when like everything that I saw from the game's marketing seemed to point to this thing being the opener. And so it was course, Green Hill, which honestly, like even in terms of design, I think Green Hill was a bit better than Sunset Heights.
Yes, it was because you actually had to go look around for those red rings. They had to stop and go back a little bit, and plus, once you got near the end, it forked in 3 different directions, so there's other places you can go.
I put the game on hard because I refuse to believe that a modern Sonic game would be difficult, and the only problem I had was readjusting to the gameplay mechanics. And
well, here's the thing: it's not hard. The hard mode is actually normal, and the normal mode is easy.
They expect you to play on hard if you've played Sonic games before, and the text in it itself actually says as such.
And what's worse, some people were having problems with the boss battles and everything on easy, because easy, you can only get a maximum of 100 rings for some reason. So if you drop rings, and if you don't have enough, you suddenly can't collect it anymore. They won't collect for you. You could die easier, which is crazy.
What were you saying, Cory?
Well, I was just going to say that after I fully adjusted, there's not really a stage in this game that I find difficult. Time-consuming, maybe, but that's about it.
As you've seen, like I had some issues with the difficulty in this game.
They do make a choice in here that I really do like.
No lives.
Especially, there are no lives. You have infinite lives. You can try as much as you want. The only thing that will affect is your end of the level score. And the checkpoint in it is fairly generous. They don't they don't put too many things in front of you that you can't handle and then get to the next checkpoint. I personally didn't find it that difficult just to get through what I need to get through as I did in something like Lost Worlds. Lost Worlds had lives. I wasn't a big fan of that because there were situations a little bit like this game where I would hit a point where something's just not well designed for what the engine is capable of doing, and I die, and I die, and I die. And then in Lost World, it would kick me out into the main hub world, whereas this one, I just try as much as it takes in order to get to the end, and then I suffer a better score.
And really, your only punishment for that is you get less items for your avatar at the end of the stage, which is something I'm going to...
Red rings.
Yeah, I'm going to give that a bonus right here, is that getting an S rank is a little more difficult than the other games, which is nice, because you shouldn't just get perfect.
I got some S ranks with
just slightly. But I like the fact that your S rank and your score matters to how many avatar pieces you collect because of the extra daily mission structure and what have you.
I wish they would have gone one step further with this whole not having to worry about lives. Just add an option to restart at the previous checkpoint instead of having to go through the trouble of committing suicide every time I miss a ring.
I didn't run into this issue quite as much as you did, but yeah, that is probably the next thing they should do now that they've eliminated the lives mechanic.
Now, we've talked about very specific details about the game, about how we feel about its balance, but I'd kind of like to take a step back and actually explain the main structure, like the whole conceit, the whole point of this game. Because I'm sure a lot of people who would be listening to this have kind of followed what it is. But
before we go into that, the one thing I don't think we really finished up on our physics discussion.
We have, but I want to step back so that we have a clear starting point, because we started with a lot of details, but we haven't really started with the main big thing, which is it's a little bit weird to kind of look at this and not think, oh, this is more Generations, because it's a game that's built on controlling 3 characters. And one of them is the modern Sonic. One of them is the classic Sonic, much like in Generations. Also like Generations, they split up the way that those 2 characters control. Classic Sonic is all 2D in somewhat more classic Sonic style, classic Sonic inspired stages to whatever degree of success you feel that they achieved with that. And modern Sonic has 3D straight ahead running that I guess we're all calling the Dash Sonic thing now. I don't know. I didn't get the memo.
Boost Sonic, most people.
Boost Sonic, whatever. And then the other aspect of it is you get a third character who is your avatar, your custom character, the thing that everybody feels is the big point of contention because, oh my god, Deviant Art has existed for 12 years. So, I don't know, Sega is promoting people making pictures of their fan, some blank the Hedgehog, because internet. Because apparently children aren't children.
I am Character the Hedgehog.
I'm Original the Character. Let's fight.
Call me Arthur. Arthur insertion.
The point exactly. Like, I am skeptical of seeing that. I don't necessarily like that, but I understand the place where that kind of attitude comes from, and it's fun to make fun of it, but at the same time, I do look at this, and I look at everything about the game, and I think, this part actually is legitimately for kids. This is something that kids would legitimately get into, and yeah, some adults who really have something invested in having their own original characters for whatever reason might enjoy that. But honestly, look at the last version of Skylanders. It was all about building your character. Look at this most current Mario game. He has 1 billion outfits that you could put on. I kind of compare this as saying, this is not as bad as you think it's going to be. This is not as stupid as you think it's going to be. It's only as stupid as you personally make it.
Well, I just made a turquoise female dog and gave her some pink stuff to wear.
And you can do that. The character creator itself is broad enough that you can make something that looks sort of elegant. You can make a character who just looks like a Sonic character, or you can dress him up in the stupidest, most neon whatever you want. And
oh man, some of those skin suits.
and I'm gonna say right away, in terms of having a custom avatar character, they actually did very well with it. I was very impressed with how they accomplished the style and letting you create a character in the style of a Sonic character, and then taking that and applying it to the game and the cutscenes in the game and the facial mapping in the game and the whole skeletal mapping in the game, and having you feel like this character would make some amount of sense in this universe stylistically. It's not a huge leap to look at this thing and say, oh, this is the fannest character that ever fanned a character.
This game was forcing me to have a self-insert character. It was forcing me to self-insert my character into a storyline where it was a big deal. I did not like that.
Skylanders and Machinators, you are just a random Skylander. Even if you create your own character, they always just call him Skylander. They always call the other character Skylander. It didn't matter. You were just creating something of you that was your own, but he wasn't the most essential character to the plot of the game or what have you.
Going back to the character design thing, I honestly felt it to be considerably underwhelming. My biggest contentions tend to be with the body design. I just felt that was rather poorly implemented. Both male and female characters had a body design that was
they're all really lanky.
They're grown-up tails. They're grown-up tails. I think there's a place for that, but I wish that there were at least 3 options for each gender. And I think
the place for that is late-stage Archie. I had to get the digging.
I was playing around with this because this bothered me so much, I decided I was going to make a female character. Just take a male character and dress him up like a female character, and the only thing that's missing is the eyelashes and the weird bodysuit, because
I guess you could say
naked.
That's at least transgender friendly that kind of way. I mean, you can make a male.
Hey, just because a guy wants to wear a dress does not make him transgender.
Yeah, he could just be a cross-dresser, Jason.
Well, I'm just saying everybody's got the freedom to create whatever kind of character you want, and that's cool.
Well, personally, I wasn't really a big fan of the limited customization of the body type.
I know exactly what you mean on there.
I would like to have had the options to have at least, aside from the standard one, also Sonics and maybe like Waves. Not Wave. Storm, I think that's his name. Crap, I can't remember his name.
You want
Werehog body type.
Basically, you want to be able to maybe have a little bit more control about how broad the character is what you're saying.
In a sense, how robust they look.
Yeah, every single one is kind of skinny and lanky, and like if you're choosing a bear, bears are usually like tall and
not
massive,
these bears.
That's a little weird.
And I think this would have worked well for the background characters because they all looked really samey to me, and I think having more body types and head types would have helped given more of a sense of variety. Not whenever you're going into a cutscene and there are like 3 of the same dude running down when there's so many more options, even with the system we currently have.
Now, as I recall, Cory, we both also have an issue with the how the clothing colors are done.
Oh God, this is some useless padding. The most useless padding I've ever seen for items.
Unlocking the same outfit with just a different color to it.
Exactly. I can't stand that. Like, I think it's cool that going through and doing certain things like collecting red rings gets you different kinds of items, but it shouldn't be different colors for the same kind of item you already have.
Like, for my character, I was trying to make her clothing colors pink and purple. And basically, because I wanted to have these colors, I was very limited with the kinds of clothes I could pick. And so, like, basically throughout most of the game, she just wore a jacket, a Puyo Puyo hat, which I love that hat. That's why I decided to go with that color scheme. And some, like, purple and pink shoes, and that was it.
Yeah, that's kind of the reason my rabbit that I used as my character is mainly dressed up as Beat.
I actually kind of went the opposite direction, and I did this whenever I used to play like collectible games, like the Pokemon trading card game. Is I was really good at not necessarily focusing on what I wanted to do, but what I could do with what I had. And if I felt like, hey, I just got a part that goes well with what I've got, then I can implement that, and that's very exciting for me. And that's at least the perspective I took out. I took it more of an additive rather than a reductionist, reducing perspective, whatever term you want.
One of the problems I have with the avatar thing is also I don't feel like I own the avatar. You know what I mean? It's not, you can't name him or her.
I did not really have that experience. I think I got to the point where I was focusing. There was a point in which I was playing this game in which I determined, you know what I would really like? I would really like a Nintendo-published style-savvy game where I can just dress anthropomorphic animals.
Interesting.
Because I actually had a lot of fun with that. I showed some of you guys the pictures of the ones I did, kind of working on color coordinating things, working with some of the pieces that I had and didn't have, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I was able to get some not crazy far out there designs using the parts that the game offered me through a single playthrough.
Yeah, the one thing I kind of like when going... I didn't really care for Rent of Avatar because I think that also takes away from the ownership of your character, because now you're just playing as any random character. Makes your character feel like special.
But I don't think I even used that.
As I went through Rent of Avatar, I mostly did it because I wanted to see what other people's stuff looked like. And there were some lame designs, but there was also some really impressive designs on there that I really enjoyed. The only problem with that is one of the reasons I got the Switch versions for the Avatar rental thing, because I thought that you would include all your friends immediately, and it's not. It's just random characters online.
I personally didn't really care too much about the Avatar building. It's like, unless you're either going to let me build an Echidna or build a Freedom Fighter, neither of which I could do, then I've never really been that big on fan characters.
You wanted Bunny Rabbit?
Bunny Rabbit, Princess Sally. I think
I would totally before that.
I maybe could have made Antoine because they did have some vaguely similar characters.
Oh God, you've been saying "sacre blue cheese" enough as it is. We don't need you to have more reason to be doing that.
Oh, sacre blue cheese! What do you have against the Antoine?
I expect that from Jason, not from you, Alex.
Chris, you don't know what I'm like when I'm not on here. I'm a very different person in person.
I have to live with him.
It does have the game does have all. If you'll eventually lock all of Sonic Boom's Sonic character parts.
Yeah, Cory told me about that. I don't really care much about that.
Oh yeah, the bandages.
Here's an unpopular opinion that's going to not fly here so much. I prefer the avatar to both this version of modern Sonic and classic Sonic. And the primary reason is...
Interesting.
I don't feel like I'm about to blast off of a platform with the avatar, whereas I don't think I have that luxury with either of the Sonics. I feel like either of the Sonics is very suicide-prone.
I'm going to make a little confession here. I actually feel the same way. I kind of like the avatar. I can't believe it. Yeah, but I think the one problem with the avatar, besides something we've been wanting to discuss, which is the 2D physics, where his jumping is really floaty and it's easy to miss small platforms. And I find the same in the modern Sonic, too. But when he's using his grappling hook to attack and doing a homing attack on certain robots, there's that half a second delay where he's reaching out and shooting it before hitting it. I think they can cut that half a second of animation to have it happen much, much faster. But in general, it feels like they made him the most important character in the game, because that's where all the music is in, the main songs, the main actually songs that you can remember, because I find modern Sonic's music to be completely forgettable and classic Sonic's music to be pretty okay, but not that memorable either. But with the Avatar, you get some horrible songs and some pretty good songs. I think Aqua Road is a fantastic little number. Whereas the Metropolis level, Insanity. Oh my God, I hated that song so freaking much.
I'm a little bit surprised that they didn't kind of lean into that more, that they are emphasizing, well, you're going to play a whole bunch of stages as modern Sonic and a whole bunch of stages as classic Sonic, because it feels like the systems that they built around building the Avatar character, the amount of customization options that they do still give you, because they, despite the fact that you might not like the way that they unlock all of them, they do give you a ton of clothing options, and they do give you a fair amount of other design options, even if you can't control body size itself.
Scale Hedgehog.
They still have the ability to choose weapons and upgraded weapons, and that completely changes the play style as well.
That's something I don't understand as well. Like Joe was talking about having to have unlocked different colors for the same exact shoes. How come they didn't allow you to build up the weapon you already have and then put the abilities that you want onto that weapon instead of giving you another burst gun? You have like 5 burst guns with different abilities. That's so stupid. Why can't I just suspect that I can do that abilities with that?
I suspect they are treating it as it was a loadout, like they do in something like Splatoon, where it's not it's designed in such a way that they feel it is more balanced in a way that makes sense. For example, if you have the Void Gun, it makes sense to actually have a whole bunch of bonuses on there associated with destroying enemies, because that gun is designed to create a black hole to suck in everything in front of you.
That's a pretty fun gun, but I didn't get it until after I beat the game. One of the other things is, besides this, because with both Generations and Unleashed, as you progress through the game and as you got higher scores, you got ability points that you could spend on Sonic's on the Unleashed. It was Sonic and the Werehog Sonic to make it more powerful, faster, have different abilities. And the same thing with Generations, where you can add different abilities to modern Sonic or classic Sonic. None of that is here. Instead, all you unlock is more characters, more outfits for your avatar, and more guns for your avatar, and more levels through red rings. So that's pretty much it. There's not that like RPG feeling of leveling up your character in any particular way.
And this, I don't know how popular this opinion will be, but in regards to the Wispens, I wish that they had foregone that and instead try to implement unique optional character powers that you could give your creative character. I know that some people might have a problem with this because a bunch of fan characters, people make their character like this ruler of a country who has a power that can crush the world in an instant if they get really depressed one day. But I think it's totally acceptable to give a power set instead of a weapon set to a creative character, because just about every character in Sonic's community of friends has a special power, and Amy might be the one that's the most out there, but even then, like, that is a pretty big hammer.
Amy's useless without that hammer.
And I think with the way that they did the Wispens, which granted, I still liked the Wispens, they did give you plenty of options, different paths that you could have taken or ways you could approach the level, depending on which Wispen you have. And I think that's something that could have employed with a different power set instead.
I kind of like how you put that, yeah. I actually only like about half the Wispens I have. Burst, of course, is the number one way to get through the game easily.
No, you're wrong. You're just flat out wrong. No, not at all.
Why?
Lightning Wisp.
Well, I think Wisp's pretty good, like for beating Infinite the first time. All you have to do is stand there to whip him most of that.
Like you can use that level. The direction of your character, you can accelerate, use it to ride on rings and stuff.
Asteroid.
Really? Yours is Asteroid, huh?
Asteroid is the one where you homing attack the first one, then while you're still in the air, you fire off a thing and kill everything else around you. Cube, I know you guys don't. I know Jason doesn't love Cube.
I think
awesome.
Cube is great. I think Cube is wonderful. It's just the way I played that is I would just home attack the first guy in a huge set, and then I would use whatever my actual weapon attack is to clear off everything else. And Cube is amazing for that.
Wow,
it does require you to stop. It does require you to act, but it has a nice effect, and it gives you a whole bunch of rings.
Okay, maybe I've been using that one wrong.
What you do is you attack, and then you attack one more time, and it blows everything up around you.
Or Cory, you can just walk through them.
Or you can walk through them.
Did you say awesome or awful?
I think it's awesome.
I said, I love the Cube Hammer, but and I've really just started using it today. Not the Cube Hammer, but my favorite is turning out to be the Hover Wispen.
Hover is great.
Yeah,
Hover's really fun.
There are actually some good Avatar levels. I think he's got some of the better levels in the game, especially the egg. What is that called? The Death Egg. When you first enter into it, there's areas where he grapples and he's able to slide, and you're able to control that slide to grab some extra rings and to shoot up a ramp for where the red rings is. Then it's the only level where you can dodge left and right as you're exiting, which I found pretty sweet.
And that's kind of what I wanted to get at is I suspect that there is at least some honesty to the idea that this game went through development changes as it was being made, because I can see there possibly have been a good Generations follow-up in this game, or a good game in which you just play as this Avatar character. And if it was the latter, I could see it having all of the things that you've discussed as it pertains to a better, more meaningful leveling up system.
To be honest, it does kind of feel like classic Sonic was kind of tacked on. I mean, he doesn't really have much of an effect on the overall story, and
he has an effect on the story aside from giving Tails some like creepy relief from his from Sonic being dead.
Oh my god! You're my new Sonic.
You're my new daddy. Yeah, but I mean his levels feel separate, except for at the very end where they're all together. His levels feel separate from the rest of the story. Like him and Tails are out there doing this other thing while everybody else is focusing on the main attack part. And so I think if anything, he was the thing that was added late in the game, maybe.
And that honestly wouldn't surprise me, given maybe they were designing something else, and Sega marketing or executives or whatever said, "No, people like Generations. Do that again. Also, let's hook this other game into it." Yeah. Which I think we're probably moving towards discussing the story and me being quiet for a little bit.
Well, before that, we were talking about physics. So, is there anything you want to mention about? Because I think the worst part of this game is playing in 2D mode as both either the Avatar or Sonic. That's
I don't mind the Avatar 2D.
Not so much Classic Sonic. Classic Sonic pretty much plays like regular Classic Sonic.
No.
For some reason, he feels heavier and he has too much weight to him, so he can't speed as fast as he normally does. But I feel like I got more control with him in 2D than I do in as modern Sonic or Avatar. But actually, I'm kind of curious now. I want to hear why GX thinks Classic Sonic doesn't feel.
Classic Sonic does not move with any sense of momentum whatsoever. He just stops on hills. Classic Sonic in this game feels way too fast, which is probably the key criticism I have about this game, is that this doesn't feel like Unleashed fast, or this doesn't feel like Generations fast. This feels like Unleashed fast, and Unleashed fast is a special kind of fast that is too fast to react. I kind of have an issue with that design choice to have
so
it.
So from when he press left and right, and when he goes from a trot to fast, do you think that's way too fast?
I think there's very little trot. I in my experience, there are times when he just rushes, and it's.
But what's weird is that also his momentum, he can't get up certain hills unless he does a roll, which I don't know how they managed that either.
Like I said, this is classic Sonic in, I can't even say style only. It's classic Sonic in character only. He doesn't move like classic Sonic. He doesn't jump like classic Sonic. He doesn't have air control like classic Sonic. He doesn't stop like classic Sonic. It just feels like, what if we made modern Sonic, except modern Sonic can't reach a certain speed? It's like, what if modern Sonic was slower? And that feels like classic Sonic.
You know what's weird is that because I got used to modern and Avatar, I kept wanting to do a homing attack with classic, and I couldn't. Canonically, at the end of Sonic Generations, Sonic taught him the homing attack, and in this one, he completely forgot it.
Don't apply that logic, because that opens a real bad place.
I kind of had some problems getting into classic Sonic's gameplay and I think a large part of it, why I had problems with it in this implementation versus in Generations, is a better classic Sonic game came out earlier this year, and
that's very true.
Yeah, and it's like the rolling isn't as good, even though I did eventually kind of figure out the rolling in this game. He's too heavy. The momentum just doesn't work nearly as well. The pinball physics suck. I mean, I got stuck for several minutes in the casino for Mystic Jungle, classic Sonic's stage for that. I got stuck for a couple minutes just because the bumpers just didn't work right.
Yeah, I was having some issues with that too. But not nearly as much as with Cory had. I eventually was just able to kind of bounce my way out. But
he made up for it with the final boss.
One positive thing I'll say about bosses right now is that they were actually all pretty solid. I enjoyed.
Aside from the Avatar one, right?
Which Avatar boss?
The only one where you just play as the Avatar.
The Infinite?
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but it was okay.
Yeah.
I beat Infinite without any problems. We keep getting off track about the physics. So, we were mentioning, classic Sonic's physics, but in a 2D, I was having the same problem where it feels like he keeps Sonic and Avatar Sonic keep wanting to move way too fast off the ledges, and I had a hard time grabbing onto the next ledge. Especially there was this one bonus mission where these spiked balls kept coming out of these pots and hitting me, and I was trying to very delicately jump onto these platforms, and then I couldn't quite do. The second jump is just like Colors, where it only gives you like a centimeter extra of a jump, and so I couldn't do that. And it took me forever, and I just finally figured that if I hold the jump button for an extremely longer time than normal, it actually creates a long enough jump. But still, I kept getting knocked off. And it was really hard to even touch that platform. That was
the only area where I've had serious issues platforming.
And even at E3, we were having problems with that one Avatar level with the delicate platforms. Anytime there's really delicate platforming where it's spaced out and the platforms are small, it's a total struggle.
Nah. I will say, I unfortunately I wasn't able to find the time to play Unleashed Generations or Colors before this game comes out, so I can't really speak too much on the physics compared to those games.
I did play Generations quite a bit before this came out. So.
Okay, good.
I miss drifting.
I would say probably the nicest thing I could maybe say about the way that physics are handled in this game is, hey, luckily you don't have to worry about them very often, because most of the time the game's just playing itself.
I'm not entirely sure I agree with that conceit completely, especially in regards to the classic Sonic stages.
Classic Sonic has a bit of the dimps to him. He has a bit of the dimps. Here's the thing that goes to the next thing that goes to the next thing.
Except in dimps, when you go up a half pipe, he can do that very slowly and still keep going up the wall. Here, he goes. If he's not in a ball going super fast, he can't make that.
That's true, but at the same time, if there's a curve there, chances are there's a boost right behind it. Like it is literally a game that it's like.
Oh, there is so many boosts. There was one in the Mystic Ruins or the Casino Ruins or whatever it's called, where there was literally like 10 boosts in front of me as I'm starting the stage. Like that is overkill and so unnecessary. Why is it there?
I think it's there because they, to an extent, I have the nagging sensation that they might kind of know that the physics aren't there, so maybe let's not have people participate in the physics too much, because we can hide it with lots of fancy cutscenes in the middle of the stage and a small handful of QuickTime events. I mean, think about how in one of the early stages, there is a big, long section of you trying to catch a train where you have no input whatsoever.
Oh my god, yeah, that's for, 10 seconds, that scene?
Yeah, about 10 seconds.
Oh yeah, longer than that, because I remember I had the Japanese demo from both the PS4 and the Switch, because I was comparing it graphically, and I was trying to beat the best time I could, because there's a glitch on that, where if you pause when you get to the QuickTime event, you can keep that level going. And I got there one time to the automated train section with 13 seconds to spare, and I still couldn't make it to the QTE section. So it was going on that section goes on for at least 13 to 14 seconds of just a cinematic scene.
And like I said in my initial thesis, in terms of actual game design, that's bad. That's real bad. That's basically not trusting your players to play your game. And in this case, perhaps not trusting your players because there's issues with the game. I am definitely projecting that, but don't take that as fact. That's my possible theory. But I gotta say, it still looks real good. They did a lot with camera angles. They did a lot with flashing and scene production, and that's kind of where I really liked the parts with the avatars, because they really do make the avatar look darn good in those sections whenever they animate the cutscene with the avatar in it.
That's one thing I'll say about the Switch version. I'm playing both PS4 and Switch, and now while PS4 is definitely sharper and more colorful, and you're playing it at 60 frames per second, it still looks fantastic on the Switch. They did a really good job on porting that to that system.
Yeah, and it's a huge improvement from E3. Like when
for playing it portable. Now there are some levels where it's obvious they took more love and care into to others. Like the Green Hill section and Sunset Heights is almost as good as console, except it's going at 30 frames a second. While the first Avatar level, if you ever look at them side by side, the textures look way worse on the Switch than it does on PS4. But when you're playing it, you're not going to really notice on a small screen anyway.
Yeah,
and if that's the only version you got, and you're not going to notice or care as it is. Okay, one other thing I guess we should talk about is the level length itself. And when we've played we played Sonic Generations, Unleashed, or Colors. Those levels, for the most part, except for Colors like sub-levels, because Colors had a lot of sub-levels where you could use the assets from the game and kept making more and more levels, which they're kind of doing here. That's one thing I want to say ahead of time, is I thought this game was going to be way too short, it took me about 4 to 5 hours to beat the main story, not including all the levels.
Yeah, that's exactly how long it took.
It's about an average length. I think Sonic Generations is definitely longer, but it's about the length of Colors. It's about an average length for a modern.
There's 30 levels in this game. Each level is roughly probably between 1 and 3 minutes.
I guess I can't really say that because a lot of that is cutscenes and dialogue, and if that was cut out, you could probably get through this game in an hour.
I mean, anyway, there's way more story than there should have been. There wasn't that much story.
Yeah, I mean, those levels are... Why are these levels only a minute and a half to, 2.5 minutes in length if you're not screwing up?
Because they divide their resources between Sonic, Classic Sonic, Avatar, and Sonic plus Avatar.
And if they're going to do that, they have the assets to just make more levels like they do with the bonus levels. Just keep...
Well, just putting together levels requires time and resources, Jason.
So here's something that could possibly keep in mind, and certainly this is not an excuse, but it could be an explanation. I don't know how long they might have held off until they had final specs for the Switch, because 100% this game would be put on a Nintendo system. It couldn't not be put on a Nintendo system, and no way it's going on the Wii U again.
I will say that, at E3, the game seemed pretty much done from a technical perspective on the PS4, whereas on the Switch, we had jaggies, we had popping with the rings. Graphically, it was way...
Yeah, graphically it looks much better now than it did at E3. So
I can certainly believe that it was basically done last year and they just delayed it for the Switch.
It's also a bit questionable...
I don't think that
budget would have been for this game, and I suspect that Sonic budgets are going down. I think Lost Worlds is a pretty good example of that happening. I think the Nintendo agreement is a pretty good example of that happening, and I definitely think that Sonic Boom is an example of that happening.
The other thing I was going to say that was originally going to be final is that they had 4 years of development time for this, and it just feels... Well, I think I brought it up before, but it just feels so small for something that had that much time into it. So it feels
unfinished.
Budget.
It feels unfinished for something that has taken that long.
Well,
yeah, it doesn't look unfinished, but
personally, I would not be surprised if the Avatar sucked up a lot of resources because of the amount of customization that's possible to that character. All the
I doubt that. Every video game's got that kind of thing. I mean, even any Skylander can make a brilliant costume.
Yeah, but I don't know that much about Skylanders, but what's the typical development time on this? Skylanders, they basically already had a lot of the resources already, a lot of the things already designed for that game.
Well, most Sonic games have 2 to 3 years, and this one had at least 4. And this is the result, the worst of the Boost series.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it is a huge disappointment from
now, before I rip into the story, which I know. GX is dying too. I do have some things I liked about it. I do like the fact that the amount of costumes you get depends on your score and your rank, and you're kind of ranking up your character through those medals, so you can kind of level him up that way, I guess. But even though it doesn't affect him gameplay wise at all. I appreciate the Shadow DLC pack. I like the idea that we not only have this backstory, gives a little bit of the backstory of Infinite, and you have Shadow playable for 3 levels, but then all the Shadow fans can now play as Shadow in the Sonic levels that you've beaten.
With the Shadow level, like there was one level I found fun, one level that was pretty meh, and then there was the Green Hill stage, which I guess did not like how that game played.
That was the final level, huh? I did not like that 3rd level at all. I hated that level.
Fire circles bad.
Virtual reality circles, Corey.
I kind of like the different ways they try to make you replay those levels and make them, keep you wanting to come back for more. Like the SOS, where you kind of have to rescue the flickies, or that. I think those are the levels with the numbered.
I have not been playing those as much.
And they also, so you're playing as somebody else's avatar, and you're playing against their time, and usually their time is weak enough that you can be able to beat that. So it's kind of
probably some kid.
Kind of a multiplayer aspect without it being exactly multiplayer.
Hey, this is GX, your editor this month. I just wanted to give you a quick head up that the next segment goes pretty in-depth as it relates to the story of the game and some of the final boss information and some of the downloadable content story information. So if you're sensitive to spoilers, the place you probably want to skip to get our final thoughts is going to be the 2-hour, 4-minute mark or so. If you skip to there, we do finish up talking a little bit about the gameplay, but you would miss the majority of the story talk. So I will give you a chance to skip ahead if you'd like to right now. So Jason, are we ready to rip off the Band-Aid, so to speak?
Haven't we already been doing that?
No. I have a feeling that this is going to be nothing compared to what Jason is about to say at us. So, my friends, let me take you back to a far simpler time of the mystical GameCube and PS2 and Xbox OC, which is what it's called now, to a little game I like to call Sonic Heroes.
Sonic Heroes!
The interesting thing about Sonic Heroes was that there were these little question mark panels throughout that you could pass through, and as you did, your characters would give you the other characters would vocalize little instructions and give you a little bit of flavor text of what's going on. And often, it didn't really matter to what you were doing. Now take those little question mark things out, and welcome to Sonic Forces, the game that has so much story and dialogue, but no story. Like, almost absolutely no story whatsoever.
Hey. Tails was feeling really guilty about letting Sonic die through his incompetence.
Well, he's the only one that actually felt a human emotion out of anybody.
Oh, my God.
So let's dig into this story now.
Hey, Corey, what does Knuckles have?
Knuckles has spies. The most incompetent person out of all of Sonic's friends
is the commander of an elite force.
Like, they could have had Silver. They could have had Amy Rose, who I hate to say would have been better suited for this. They could have had Rouge.
What kind of crazy world has a completely incompetent boob as the commander-in-chief?
Part of the problem is, like, he wasn't even really being incompetent for the most part. He was just kind of being, I'm the bland leader guy now. But
okay, so, and let's go into the Infinite and his motivation and his stupid dark.
He is Vegeta's Vegeta.
No, it's not even Vegeta. Vegeta has a motivation. Vegeta was an asshole. He was the prince of the Saiyans. He wanted to and he couldn't defeat Goku, and that became his big motivation to be stronger enough
Jason,
to defeat
you
Goku.
just described Infinite. Congratulations.
No, because Infinite was a pussy to begin with. Here he goes. He's got it's some random jackal or jackass or whatever you want to call him. And in the comic, him and his arm. By the way, you have to read the comic and then play the prologue of the Shadow DLC to understand the full story of Infinite.
Yeah, like, you just take the game on its own.
He brings it's the Jackal commander, and he brings his Jackal army and tries to fight Eggman. Eggman manages to fight him off, and he tells him, "All right, Jackal,
you
might as well give up and become part of my army." And the Jackal's like, "Yeah, all right, okay,
Jason,
let's do this shit. I don't care. Let's blow through."
You've just described the Frieza saga of Dragon Ball Z. Infinite is frickin' Vegeta's Vegeta, in which Shadow is Vegeta because damn it, Sonic series.
Shadow called Infinite weak, and that made Infinite.
I'm not weak.
Yeah, I'm not weak. He capes in the Eggman right away. Then he fights Shadow, who defeats his army off screen, at just a mere mention in the DLC. And he's like, "Yeah, man, you're a pussy." and then if it is like, "I'm not a pussy, I'm not weak, why you calling me that?"
So
finally, all he wants to be after that is strong, and Eggman experiments him on with the Phantom Rudy, puts him in the freaking Bacta tank. And
I mean, you guys were talking about how you may not necessarily like the direction that they took the Avatar character becoming an important character. Here's the thing. Infinite is the most Sonic fan ass Sonic character.
Yes, he is.
He so is.
In
design, what I both love and hate about this game.
In personality,
I could have written a
Sonic fanfic.
I could have written a better villain when I was a teenager, and I was a pretty shitty fucking writer when I was a fucking teenager. But my God, he is just the most emo-est piece of shit with the worst freaking motivation of any.
Oh,
and you know what we haven't brought up, but we all know, is that like his big beef is with Shadow. But who does he like have his big beef with in the game? Sonic and some Avatar guy who was really terrified of him.
He's Vegeta. He doesn't have a thing that he's after because he thinks he's better than you. Like that's I can't spell it out more clearly.
Corey,
the only reason he thinks he's better than you is because he's got this Phantom Ruby power and stuck a really the Dark Edge mask on him.
Corey, what do you have to say?
I think my assessment of like the simplest assessment I can give of Infinite is okay. Here's Shadow. I am the ultimate edgelord. then Infinite walks in and he's all like, "Hold my beer."
Okay, Chris, there's a huge hole in what you're saying. Because you see, if he was Vegeta's Vegeta, then he would have gone from being a villain to being his rival, and then eventually he would have gotten married to, I don't know, Blaze the Cat or something, had a kid, and then become a begrudging.
No. We're talking Frieza era Vegeta. We're not talking, hey,
even in Frieza era, he became a begrudging ally because he had to.
Betrayed Goku the first
chapter. No. Here's the thing. We're in the first chapter of the Sonic Forces saga. You see, as the Sonic Forces series continues, we're going to slowly have Infinite become more of a prominent character. We're going to learn why he became what he became a bit more and who he was before he became Eggman's working slave person. And then we're going to find out that he marries Amy Rose.
No. Amy Rose has to marry...
my fanfic.
E102 Omega. That's my official...
And meanwhile, the Avatar character somehow impregnates Sonic at the end.
Oh my God, Jason! Come on.
So we're going with fanfic material.
It to that next level, didn't ya?
I mean, here's the thing: we're to the point where Rift Tracks is making pregnant Sonic jokes in their I think we're at a point where that is a
remind
culturally
me that
known-
this exists.
And what's funny is while Lost World's story might have been better, it was tonally all over the place from dark to humorous to dark. This stupid story stays dark the whole time.
This story does not stay dark. This story is even more. This story is even more up and down because they specifically tell you, and then Sonic was tortured for months.
Yeah,
and then he's right there just whipping like.
Tortured? I don't remember that.
Yeah,
he was tortured for a year.
Oh my!
Yeah, he was tortured. No, it's
6 months.
Knuckles literally said he was captured and tortured for 6 months.
Oh my god! I forgot
Tortured.
about that. Oh my god!
And the Avatar goes and rescues him off of the Death Egg. And okay, here's Sonic before he gets caught. Dippity dip skipperoo! I'm Sonic. Gotta catch them all. And then 6 months of torture later, he's yippity dip skipperoo! I'm Sonic. Gotta catch them all. No trauma to him at all. No anger to the situation he's in. He's just the exact same Sonic he was before he was tortured for 6 months.
Which
Can I be honest
that the brilliant twist of this story is that it has an unreliable narrator, and then you realize it's brilliant.
Can I be honest here? I really don't want PTSD Sonic. I really don't think that needs to be a thing.
I would settle for at least angry and slightly vengeful Sonic who eventually mellows out to his old self.
I don't even want
that.
This
is not how people act. This is not how people act when they've been tortured for 6 months.
I mean, I would just prefer this not be a dark story, personally. But
yes, thank you. Thank you for saying the right thing.
None of us.
Like that would solve all of my problems.
Nobody wanted this story.
Like, I don't care how inconsistent and worse it makes the story. I don't want PTSD Sonic. I don't want vengeful Sonic.
Speaking of inconsistent, Tails goes from saying that he's able to create a radio out of paper clips in Sonic Lost World, saying he can't fix Omega the robot.
So
when he's
was this after his depression?
Man.
Was this
so
after
the part
his
of
depression?
this that I don't get is that I always got this. This is something that Iizuka has never done while he's been head of Sonic, because think about every single one of his games from Secret Rings all the way through Lost Worlds is there has been a far more lighter tone, like even peaking with something like Unleashed, where that game has a lot of legitimately good humor.
Yeah, Chip was adorable.
The problem is the producer on Sonic Forces is the director of Sonic 06.
I'd like to remind you,
and he brought back the Dark Age stuff into it.
I'd like to remind you, Chris, that Iizuka directed.
Wait! No! I need time to process what Jason just said.
Oh, God damn it!
Because I was not keenly aware of this, and suddenly.
Everything makes sense, doesn't it?
A lot more damn sense, especially since Infinite and Satan the Hedgehog from Sonic 06, aka Mephiles, which I know how to say his name right, but I refuse.
Mephiles, Chris.
Shut up.
Mephistopheles.
Exactly. I like what Cory said best. He knows that game better than you do, Alex.
I'm going to destroy you.
That makes a lot of that. Just,
okay, so before you put,
I'm broken. I'm done. Goodbye, guys. I'm done with the podcast.
Okay. So before you put all of this on him, producers don't necessarily have much creative control. They mostly can and typically do just control the funding of a game. I mean, they can have creative control, but by and large, it's the director that runs this stuff. And I'd like to remind you that in addition to this being a game made under Iizuka, he also was the director of Shadow the Hedgehog. So you can't. So like just because Iizuka wasn't necessarily like leading Sonic Team at the time, that doesn't mean like he hasn't done dark stories before. I certainly give him credit for Shadow the Hedgehog, which is like the darkest Sonic game we've ever had.
I always got the impression that Naka did play a little bit more of a role in Shadow the Hedgehog, if only because of some of the ways that he is able to talk about that experience. Although I guess a lot of what he says is that's what the fans wanted.
That's really all I ever heard him was like Sonic fans want Shadow and they want guns in their Sonic game, and so that's what he made. So that's what they did.
Coming back to Forces.
Oh yeah, sorry, go on.
Coming back to Forces, there's something that I've been wondering for a few days in regards to Tails and Classic Sonic. I kind of wonder, and this is half jokingly, mind you, if Classic Sonic was a hallucination Tails had that was made real by the Phantom Ruby.
Sure, why not?
Hey,
in this story, why not?
That actually works out pretty good.
Hey, Sonic Mania clearly demonstrates that Classic Sonic went to this new world.
Yeah, but the problem is the Sonic Mania, the Phantom Ruby was in Sonic Mania. It was actually the same Deus Mox's thing. Except, here's another thing that pisses me off, because that Ruby, the way that Ruby works makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Because they're saying it brings thoughts to reality, yet in Sonic Mania, all it did was warp them from place to place. Well, and it didn't freeze anything, and it didn't make Eggman any more powerful. It didn't make any of the hard-boiled heavies any more powerful.
Jason,
all it did was, and at the end of the game, all it did was warp Classic Sonic to the Sonic Forces world.
Keep in mind what the final boss fight was. That one basically, like, it got all purple, and it transformed Robotnik's and what's his face as the other enemies, mechs or whatever. So
okay, let me explain something. It's a very simple concept that will explain the story of both.
Oh my!
Very clearly, and the explanation is, despite the sheer amount of dialogue in this thing, the story doesn't actually make any damn sense. None at all. The rubies don't make sense. The whatever Knuckles is saying, we're going to send you to this place. Who cares? Who knows? I don't know why I'm in Chemical Plant again. Maybe I'm getting a spaceship or unlocking someone. Maybe I'm in Death Egg trying to blow it up or save Sonic. I don't know. I'm going back there. I don't know. That's honestly the point in which I was able to enjoy this, is just accepting, you know what? None of this matters.
Transports the sun to the
yes,
of the
we
earth,
know.
And somehow everybody doesn't get killed instantly.
This is the same game where Blue Hedgehog's breathing space.
Okay,
yes,
I don't really think
We've been used to Sonic breathing in space for decades. He's been breathing in space since the classic era.
Yeah, I know.
We were okay with that. I can accept that Eggman's able to split the Earth apart a little bit because there's spirits and everything. They're still holding it together a little bit. And they were able to reassemble it and somehow not damage the whole planet really badly. I can accept that he blew up a chunk of the moon because it's still pretty much in orbit.
Then you should be able to accept that he can manifest the sun.
Jason, Alex.
All these planets to create a... I can even accept that he brought all these planets...
I want to hear what Chris has to say.
Chris, and then they freed him, and then he went into orbit and started colliding into each other like pool balls.
Okay, Chris...
But I hate to be the one to do this after what I just said. But it wasn't the real sun. It was the fake sun created by the rubies. That checks out. And it was stopped by the other ruby.
Isn't that still full of solar radiation?
But it's not actually there. It's only there in their minds, and they feel it because that's the way that the ruby works. It makes your body react as if it was, because Shadow used the word virtual reality wrong.
Yeah, what is with the way they keep saying virtual reality?
Cory, what are you saying?
Meanwhile, it has absolutely no effect on the Earth or the buildings because, they're inanimate. And even if you factor in Dark and Light Gaia, they're kind of asleep right now. They can't have anything to do with this. Otherwise, everything would be just sucked into the sun as soon as it appeared.
I'm sorry, Jason, but that... Unfortunately, as much as I would love to be right there with you complaining about how stupid this is, and I will say, it's stupid, it's bad, none of it makes any sense. The rules that apply to the Ruby aren't consistent. They might as well be how they apply Chaos Control in Sonic 06, because damn that game. But this is probably not the battle to fight.
Meanwhile, Sonic drowns. We know Sonic can drown underwater, but he doesn't need to breathe in space, and there's never been a plot reason why.
There's air in space.
There's not air in space.
How can
There's an air in space museum.
Jason, I swear to God,
that's a Simpsons joke. So you can't blame him. That's a Simpsons joke.
We brought it back to the Simpsons.
Yeah, that's why I praised him. So, okay. So now, before we move on, I don't know if we're like done with the story yet.
One other thing is at the end of For Infinite, they finally defeat him because he managed to lower his powers, and he's never killed or anything. He just runs away like a sissy. You never see him again.
Wait, like I said, this is the first chapter.
Didn't Eggman absorb him or something? I don't know what happened.
All you hear is that Eggman took the ruby back.
Oh,
and powered up that big spider robot. And so he's saying like it's the most invincible, most power robot he's ever created, and yet they're still able to destroy it just by knocking rocks back at it and knocking missiles back at it, and then homing attack it. And then finally another little spider bot crawls out, and then they have to fight that with no Chaos Emerald powers and no Phantom Ruby powers, really.
Basically like the Sonic Colors boss.
Oh no, I think the Avatar had Phantom Ruby powers. I'm not sure.
We should probably talk about the final boss at some point. But
speaking of the Avatar, yeah, like we were talking about how fanfic this is. The Avatar goes from being like the minor character to the most important character and Sonic's best friend by the end of this.
To be fair,
can't get more Arthur insertion fanficky.
To be fair, like that's kind of something.
And not only that, he gets the will to be able to control the Phantom Ruby.
I mean, keep in mind in Elder Scrolls, like your make-a character is always the most important douchebag in the world.
Yeah,
but that's because it's the only character.
That's kind
here. It should be the Sonic and classic Sonic should be more of the focus than the Avatar, but the Avatar becomes the main hero eventually.
Here's the thing. I think that's okay in this situation for the simple point that as much as we complain about that being a central idea of the fan character, that in my fanfic, my fan character, my self-insert character becomes friends with Sonic and becomes the best thing, and becomes his best friend and saves the day. You are playing as this character in the game. This literally is your character. It has to be a significant part of it.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they aren't making a specific character. This isn't Sega making a fan character and saying, this is the most character. This is giving you the option to make that character and just have that character be part of the story. They create the formula for it, but it is still just kind of the story of whatever you make. Maybe it's the same story for the Rabbit Girl or the Wolf Man or the Hedgehog Boy or the Cat Girl or whatever. But in order to make that a significant part, they do have to give it a significant role, which is kind of why I almost think that this game might have been better if it was you just playing as the fan character.
Yeah, I mean, at least it would have been focused if they did that.
I don't think I'd want that throughout the whole game, but maybe if it was just, the fan character and modern Sonic, and maybe take classic Sonic.
You are literally just taking 1/3 of the game out and having it be the same exact thing.
I mean, take out 1/3 and add more to it.
So, I've got a question for all of you. Is there anything?
I just think it needs more focus.
Is there anything in the story that you like?
Yeah, I like the progression of just like it's moving place to place to place. I don't actually have to care. I can turn it off if I want to, and it's a series of stupid, fun action sequences.
And the dialogue's pretty awful too. Something Sonic says at the end, and Tails says, "True dat."
Oh, God.
Out of nowhere. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, overall, it's so bad. I was laughing through parts of it. It's just
I was cringing. Especially in the early parts. It's
self-serious in a way that doesn't make a lot of sense for the way the tone of everything that's going on doesn't match the way that it's actually written, which is weird. It comes off as
really stiff too.
I think what it has is it might have been a case of Japanese writers with American writers doing the dialogue, where Japanese writers might have been doing the story.
Right. It's almost like this is a weird comparison that I think is obscure for some people. Hold on, Jason.
Sorry.
Do you recall? Have you ever heard of the anime Ghost Stories?
Yes.
Yes.
Ghost Stories is a po-faced horror or thriller anime that ADV took its philosophy for dubbing to, we're just going to riff over this and make our voice actors kind of ad-lib a lot of what's going on, often in such a way that makes weird pop culture jokes and weird off-color comments, and kind of turning this po-faced mediocre horror into a bizarre dubbed comedy. And it feels like, even if it wasn't, it feels like this is almost that trying to be, except the writers aren't good at writing dialogue.
Which, I mean, we know that Pontac and Griff are good at writing dialogue. Those Sonic Colors Eggman PSAs are still the funniest things that ever been.
It's weird. That was the one that was gold. That's the one that they did a really great job at, is Sonic Colors. I
never had the freedom.
I still like the fun and tone of Sonic Colors and the dialogue. But ever since, they haven't been able to get it at all.
I hate the dialogue in Sonic Colors. I'm sorry. The jokes are cringy and horrible.
Think of who you're telling that to, though.
Yeah, but at least
Pun Lord.
If you find Sonic's joke, I thought Eggman's jokes are great, but if you find Sonic's jokes bad, at least it had a lighthearted tone from beginning to end.
It knew what it wanted to be.
It had a solid story and knew what it wanted to be. This, it wants to be dark, but it doesn't fit right, and the villain makes no sense. The story barely makes any sense at times.
Wasn't my question what do you all like about the story?
I said it. It's a bunch of big dumb action sequences that are visually impressive.
Now,
and
Jason,
a character that I have some moniker of emotional investment in because I got to design them in some way.
Jason, is there anything you like about the story?
It's been generations since I've seen you. I knew that would piss you off.
The dialogue in Shadow's story is hilarious, and not purposely so.
I guess I'll answer this next.
Yeah, I kind of enjoy it the way Sonic enjoyed Sonic 06, and that the cringeworthiness of it. But that at the end of the day, do you guys think this is a worse story than Sonic 06? Or
honestly, Sonic 06, I'd argue is higher highs, but also way lower lows than this. It's hard for me to answer this.
I would argue Sonic 06 tries to really embed its story in with everything that's going on. Like, the story is at least somewhat more linked to the actions on the screen, and in all honesty, I almost think that that's a bigger failure, because I think that story is terrible garbage with bad characters and the worst voice cast. I have no problem saying that voice cast is worse. And it has no levity whatsoever. It has absolutely no sense of self-awareness of what it is doing. It is so po-faced. It is so buying into its own bizarre sense of serious and darkness. Whereas this, I can still ignore this story. I can't do that in Sonic 06. Sonic 06, I have to tackle that story head on.
You know what? You make a very good point here.
I think after a minute of thinking about it, I would. have to prefer at least a third of Sonic 06's story to Sonic Forces. Sonic and Silver really drag it down, but I could really get into Shadow's character.
Yeah,
Silver frustrated me, and Sonic's just kind of all like, "Hey, just smile." Meanwhile, Shadow fits the tone that the game is trying to aim for the best out of the three of them.
Cory, that's because secretly Silver is the worst Sonic character ever made.
Silver is the worst Trunks.
I agree with Cory in that I found Shadow's storyline to be tolerable, but then like when you get into Silver's story, you know, like it's like darkness and apocalypse and stuff. When you get into Sonic, is like bestiality and getting impaled in the back and stuff, and one thing that Sonic Forces has over 06 in terms of storyline is that modern Sonic's dialogue still has some personality, whereas in 06 it's sterile. Go on.
The other thing that this game has over Sonic 06 is that everything in Sonic 06 is a cutscene. And it's all a cutscene, and they're not good cutscenes.
Yeah.
Whereas these are all talking heads. It's all laid out with things that don't actually make any sense.
I had to keep stopping my thumbs from pressing the X button to skip what they were saying.
Why stop? What? That's my question.
I wanted to judge the storyline, Chris. I needed to judge it, and my thumbs didn't want me to. My thumbs just wanted to get through it.
You judged it, but I think the impulse.
That's why it's called
was the judgment.
Oh God, you had to remind me about that line. Ugh,
whenever I would go into the living room while he was listening to the dialogue, we just ended up talking over it most of the time anyway.
I was reading it for the record, but yeah. So, like, I don't know, like, Sonic didn't get kissed by a human or die, or hell, his corpse wasn't kissed by a human, I should say. You know, like, he didn't have
there was no necrophilia.
He didn't have any romantic frolics or anything, you know, like, it was cringy in Forces, but wasn't that cringy.
There was on-screen death in this one, though. Has that happened much before? Like,
wait, on-screen death?
The backstory, we see the backstory of Avatar when he was young and afraid of Infinite. You see Infinite shoot with lasers and blow up 3 different soldiers.
Honestly, I just kind of assumed they were knocked unconscious or something.
with huge explosions? I don't think so.
It's a Sonic game. It's a Sonic game. You get hit by that shit. You don't die. I mean, so long as you have some rings.
Yeah, he's saying. Look at Chris is saying. Look what kind of game you're talking about.
I'm holding for those people not watching the video. I'm holding up the game case and pointing at the E10 Plus.
Yeah.
Hey guys, my name is Yamcha the Wolf, and I'm going to be Sonic's best friend. Unfortunately, you have to gather the 7 Chaos Emeralds, my corpse, and Elise in order to bring me back to life because I've already died.
Cory, don't give away the plot for Sonic Forces 2!
Oh, Lord.
So,
let's see.
What's your overall feelings about this game?
It's fine.
I've gone for back and forth about to hating it to liking it okay to I don't know.
At worst, I was underwhelmed. At best, I was enjoying myself. And in the end, I went back to playing the game today. I was still having fun. Like, it's no Sonic Generations, no colors. Unfortunately, it's not even Sonic Unleashed.
It is the worst of the Boost series, and I think we can all agree on that.
Honestly, I might put it above. There are parts of Unleashed I do like, but
I prefer Unleashed speed levels, and honestly, I prefer the werewolf over the Avatar.
I would find this game easier to go back to than Unleashed. I don't know if I like it more, but because of the way it's structured and how bite-sized it is, and how just cumbersome playing Unleashed can be.
Okay.
I can see that.
If we're about to give concluding thoughts, I think I just want to go back to the boss fight because I had a pretty great time a couple days ago watching Alex utterly fail at beating the final boss fight. He spent 1 hour and 40 minutes.
1 hour and 26. 1 hour and 26 minutes.
Wait a minute. Was this Infinite or was this Eggman?
This was
Eggman. The final boss.
The third part of it. He spent so long that I remember kind of just beating it by luck, but I went and I grabbed my Switch and sat down while he was trying to play it, and I beat it in 6 minutes and died once. While he was still going for like.
Alex, you do know you were able to homing attack his chest. You didn't have to homing attack his arm. You could homing attack his chest.
That's not where I had issues. Where I had issues was in the final phase.
Really?
That's the final phase.
Well, you see, like I kept getting hit by the once I figured all the other parts out, what kept killing me was that final laser blast that went by too fast for me to die.
Entirely accurate. That is not entirely accurate.
Yeah, okay.
I watched this guy. Okay, the first part.
That was the big roadblock, though.
No. That was the second big roadblock because you kept running into the fire. You ran into the fire more than you got hit by the lasers at the end. I watched you.
That's because. Yeah.
There was a pattern. You could have dodged it with ease on your second try if the first time was that bad, but you just ran into it wholeheartedly. Like the fire would be there, and that's how I noticed that the fire doesn't hurt you immediately, but you would just stay in it like a stupid child.
I eventually figured out that, the boosts pop up in certain areas of the lane, rings pop up in others. And so I started strategizing and planning. I was able to start getting through what really kept killing me on the fire part was the helix. The helix seemed completely random, and since it's difficult to move up the lane without a boost, and it didn't always have a boost, I'd always get hit. But I often get hit by that damn thing.
Man.
Cory?
So I played it for an hour, and then it timed out.
And yes,
it times out after an hour.
You were an artist who worked on a comic series of mine for more than a year, did excellent work that was always appreciated. I don't think I've ever loved you more than I love you right now.
For the record, this is part of the reason why I wanted him on this podcast, because I knew he could tell the story better than I could.
And I have to disagree. Like you say, particularly the double helix, it was the entire thing. Especially whenever there were 3 rows that were being taken up, you would just stay in the middle one.
This was only in the early parts. I eventually figured that out and got past it. You're not being completely fair.
Oh no, I am being completely fair. You did that most of the time.
To be honest, it took me about 20 minutes to beat Infinite the final time because I kept running up to that wall area where it resets itself.
This isn't Infinite. This is Eggman. But
yeah, I know, but I'm just saying for Eggman, for Infinite Eggman, that wasn't that big a deal.
But I timed out after an hour. Apparently, that's the thing in this game, and then I managed to beat him up the second go around in about a half hour. Surely
nobody would take longer than an hour to get through any of these 3-minute levels.
I don't even know why the timeout is there. In Sonic Adventure, it go all the way up to 9999999, and then it just stops. That's not what this game does.
Yeah, I will say one thing though. For the most part, I really enjoyed the boss fights in this game. I thought this was despite the fact that they don't have Chaos or Shadow as bosses, which they advertised.
Yeah, that was a disappointment. I wanted to fight Shadow and Chaos.
I found the bosses to be quite well done in design, which it really shocked me. That's actually one of the better parts of the game was the bosses.
I enjoyed.
I actually like the bosses better than this than I did in Generations, maybe even.
I like the Sonic Adventure. Oh, I would not say it's better than Generations.
But at the end of the day, yeah, the first time you play through this, you're going to see a lot of stuff you can't. Mainly the story is just awful. And it's a little bit of a not slog to get through, but especially if you're a Sonic fan like us, you're going to have a lot more to complain about versus somebody who doesn't really focus that much on Sonic stories. That's how I think Jim Sterling and Game Grumps and some other people are enjoying this more than others because they don't give a crap about Sonic that much, and so they don't really compare it to the other games. But as a standalone on its own, like especially with Switch, once you're done with the game, it's kind of fun to go back to and just replay these bite-sized levels and try to get the extra rings and get
and unlock additional
rings. So with that, I did enjoy that level. It's not a bad Sonic game. It's not one of it's bad in its tone of the story. It's bad in that it's got poor physics compared to the other ones. It's bad. What was I going to say? The shortness of the levels. But outside of that, it's playable. It's actually functional, I guess. It's not as bad as like Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric or. I like Fire and Ice. If this was Fire and Ice, it'd be a lot more happier. Actually, it's not as bad as even Shattered Crystal's worse than this. 06 is worse than this,
obviously.
But it's had so much time for development. This was the sequel of sorts to Generations 2, and it doesn't even match up even close. This felt like DLC for Sonic Generations more than a full-fledged game, practically.
Well, if it were DLC, it would be a better game because it would have drifting.
Yes, exactly. It would have drifting, and I wouldn't be falling off ledges. But in the end, I think I'd give this about. I think it's a much better experience to play. I think on portable, where if you just have a 5 minutes, you could usually get through 2 levels, versus sitting down and playing on a console, and you don't want to play for very long before you get out of it. So I think I'd give this about a 6 on PS4 and maybe a 7 on Switch.
Huh. Cory, why don't you give your final thoughts before I do?
To be honest, I've had a difficult time getting into Sonic games since Generations. I've just had a big burnout, and I really would wish I could get into Lost World. I didn't expect much from this game, not really anything that would really draw me back in. Oddly enough, the story, even though I think it's a terrible story, got me back into it a little bit. But out of the Unleashed style games, this is clearly the worst, in my opinion. I mean, I feel like its formula goes back to being Unleashed-esque in terms of the level design for modern Sonic. But it's not quite as good as how Unleashed did it. And it's also pretty disappointing that no stage in this entire game was even remotely close to as good as what Sky Sanctuary was in Generations.
Yeah. For me, I kept saying, okay, is anything in here going to be as good as Chemical Plant and Sky Sanctuary? And never got there.
Yeah, in this game, there might be a level or two where you branch off for a few moments and then come back, but there's never a level where you're on a different path for a long, extended period of time, except for a few classic Sonic areas. And that's part of the problem I have with this level design, is that it just keeps it simplistic. It keeps everything on the road in front of you and doesn't really branch off that much, except for a few occasions.
Well, I would say that it certainly for classic Sonic, it branches off more than modern Sonic, but also the Avatar seems to have better than classic Sonic in that modern Sonic in that regard as well. Also, another thing about this game is it really made me wish that I had at least Knuckles and Tails to be able to play as. Like, I would sacrifice the create a character and classic Sonic to have Knuckles and Tails back. And I think with this style of gameplay that they're using, it would be easier for them to implement that, as even with branching paths or paths that are accessible only to Tails or Knuckles, than it would be if they had gone back to something more like adventure-style gameplay.
I would sacrifice classic Sonic, create a character, and a baby goat. I'd like to go next. So honestly, I didn't have a huge issue with the physics. Beyond, there's like 2 weird things I encountered. One was like classic Sonic, like he loses speed when I play on the Pro Controller with the D-pad, but he doesn't lose speed when like just running straight on a straight level thing.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second,
okay.
Because I have a question, and specifically in that regard. Did you ever run into a situation where it felt like the Joy-Con control sticks felt unresponsive?
I couldn't run backwards very well. To the left.
Here's how it is. For Classic Sonic, the Joy-Con joysticks felt unresponsive, and the Pro Controller D-pad felt unresponsive. But then when I used the Joy-Con D-pad or the Pro Controller analog stick, they did feel responsive and fine. And that's just the weirdest darn thing.
It is very weird, and I had a bizarre experience where I couldn't play Classic Sonic with the control stick because I felt like, for whatever reason, there were periods of time where it would just stop functioning, and I just switched to the D-pad and was done with it.
But beyond that, I didn't have a huge issue with the physics. But I found the levels to be mostly fun to run through, with the exception of, I think the one modern Sonic level I like the least is that Mystic Jungle level with those with those like half pipes with the spikes and everything. Like, I just did not have a good time running through that level. And but by and large, I had fun. I had fun blasting through the stages. I'm having fun trying to get the secret rings. I'm having fun searching for alternate paths, because like the weirdest thing's been happening. They were like, I guess, accidentally stumble upon a branching path that goes through a separate part of the stage.
That happened to me just now. I'm playing the game while I'm talking to you, and I'm using hover for the first time.
Like in the modern Sonic Chemical Plant stage, in addition to branching grind rails, there is another grind rail that's right at the start of the stage that I accidentally jumped on, and it took me through a completely different area to get to that place where you have those three paths winding together. Then later on in the stage, there is at least one other alternate path that I haven't even figured out how to reach yet. Like, it seems to me that it's not that the alternate paths aren't there, they're just hidden, which is, I'm not sure how I feel about that right now, because it seems like if they're hidden and they don't necessarily get you through the stage, and they don't necessarily have their own secret rings, red rings, which, for record on Chemical Plant they do, then what's the point of them? But so, I don't know, overall, like the Avatar, I got used to that surprisingly quickly. I didn't have the same issues with him that I had at E3, although I'm still not a huge fan of several of the weapons, and it does seem like there are just points in this game where it's like, if you pick the wrong weapon, you're fucked. Overall, I'd give it a 7 or a C. It was fun. It wasn't as good as Unleashed. Frankly, I like Lost World more, but it's fun. So, take that as you will.
So, I guess I have a storied attitude towards this game. In my previous podcasts here, I've kind of established my position on it as, I expect this to just be the next Sonic game. I didn't have particularly high expectations for it. I saw it, I looked at what it was doing, I looked at what it was doing in the context of the previous games, and kind of judged that this is probably not the next big thing. And
no.
I think that that's basically what it has shown itself to be. I think it has shown itself to be, if you are in a situation where you care enough about Sonic to invest in its sort of pseudo-annualized game releases, which is inconsistent, but you know what I mean. If you invest in them all, it's not going to be the worst experience you can have. It's going to be playable, and the parts that are annoying are pretty short and give you enough help that you can still get through them without too much struggle. It's something that you can't necessarily say about other similar Sonic games like Unleashed or like 06, where the toughest parts are often excruciating because they become bottlenecks for
I agree
your
with
lives
that.
and continue. If you're willing to put aside the idea that it might be anything comparable to Generations, And you can just take it on the terms that it's going to be a big, dumb, clumsy experience that has some fan characters and weird bad story that is kind of easy to just kind of shove off to the side. You can turn off a lot of aspects of it. You can skip cutscenes. I think it's fine. I think it's an entertaining product, even if I don't necessarily think that it's a particularly good game. I think that if you are a Sonic fan who is looking for whatever the next big thing is, you are already happy this year with Mania. And as an experience, I think that is a strong enough experience on its own to probably take you to whatever next year's might be. And then you can assess whatever next year's might be, or the year after, or however long it's going to take until they decide to release a next thing. It's fine, but it's fine in both the most positive nature of that word and the most negative. That it's not anything special. It's not going to change your mind about Sonic. It's not going to be anyone's favorite Sonic game unless they really, really do enjoy the character creator aspects, which there are people who do, especially, like I said, children. I get the strong sense that this game specifically is going to appeal to a lot of children. But if you are looking for the better Sonic experiences, thankfully you're at least satisfied this specific year, even if it's not from Forces.
Yeah, it's true.
It does seem like a huge missed opportunity, though. Hopefully they'll do better with the next one.
My hope is that Mania informs future development. I know with Sega and Sonic Team specifically, that's a really tough thing to have confidence in, but Mania got such positive buzz. It got better buzz than even Generations. And people actually legitimately like Generations. But Mania just was a behemoth, especially for probably how much they paid to have it made.
Yeah, like it's consistently been on the Switch charts, and it's consistently been above Forces from what I've seen. So it's,
I hear the Forces sales aren't too bad on the.
I mean, it's typically one or two spots down on the Switch eShop. My hope is that the Sonic Mania team is going to become a core part of the Sonic franchise, and not just making Sonic Mania sequels, but making genuinely brand new Sonic games with brand new graphics and everything.
Let me throw out one more question, and obviously my answer is going to be yes, based on my experiences here. But do you think there is a future for the idea of a customized character in a Sonic game?
Honestly, I don't really think so. I think the only way that would have happened is if this game sold really well, and there's it seems to be selling decently, at least on the eShop, but it does. I don't really think this is big enough where it's going to be the next Shadow the Hedgehog or anything, where it's going to be revisited in future games.
I think it's just this game's gimmick, because every Sonic game's got to have a certain gimmick to it.
Okay, and I say that the only counter I would possibly say to that, and I agree with the tone of what you just said, Jason. The only exception that I could see in that situation is we still have Wisps.
That's true.
That would be the only thing I would say to that, but I kind of agree to an extent. I would like to see this done in a more thorough way, in a better game, because I do like the feeling of just being able to have a character that I can have even just some emotional investment in that isn't just Sonic, especially in an art style of Sonic where, let's face it, the reason why there are so many Sonic fan characters, and why the Deviant Art game exists is because Sonic character design is rather formulaic.
Aside from Big.
Yeah, Big's a little bit.
I wish I could have made.
Froggy, where are you?
He's in the kitchen.
Really?
In the
I'll
microphone.
get my fishing rod.
Anyway,
To me, the use of that in this game does two things. One, it kind of tackles that head on in such a way that, you know what? To an extent, as much as people make fun of this, now it's a thing. It's a thing. Let's just look at it. Let's just deal with it. Let's get through the jokes. It's out there. It's just part of the game. And I think culturally, I would kind of like to see that, just so that it takes some of the wind out of the utter cynicism regarding that specific part of the Sonic fan community. If it became an aspect of the game consistently, or its own game to some extent, or was implemented in some way in future games, then I think that the idea becomes less of another thing on the Sonic dartboard of people to be pissy about.
I think that if they're going to continue the Avatar, for one, no more classic Sonic in these modern Sonic games. I think that they need to at least focus the game to two play styles. Modern Sonic, Avatar.
Or better yet, one play style, and do it well.
That's what I would prefer, but if we're going to do the Avatar, then either the Avatar gets its own game, or we need to.
Or the Avatar just frickin' plays like Sonic.
I'd be okay with that.
I think what I would like, I don't think I'd really care to see a game where the Avatar is as centric as it was in Sonic Forces. I think I would still like to have it, but rather as a fun side thing that you can do in the game that you're able to play over the course of the main stages.
So you want something along the lines of like Sonic and Knuckles then?
Basically, like what I said earlier, where I would like to have playable characters like Tails and Knuckles back, and depending on which character you play in that stage would depend on how you're able to interact with that stage.
You know what? It'd be great for multiplayer, because you should have a unique avatar if you're going to be playing a multiplayer game.
Yeah, I actually like that idea. It's a good idea, Cory. So like they could like allow the Avatar to like have 3 different kinds of power sets. And then you can like take the Knuckles, Tails, or Sonic route.
Yeah,
and you can customize it. Like
you're just upset because you can't make an Echidna.
Hey, like I'm not that upset.
I am.
I'd love to make an Echidna, but when I'm talking like when I'm talking power sets, I'm not talking about making an Echidna. I'm like, just give the character like
I'm sorry, Alex.
And,
you can never make another Echidna because Ken Penders owns the very concept of multiple Echidnas.
He does not shut your mouth.
The only thing I wanted to ask is, do you think Sonic Team will ever learn from this and actually improve stuff they've done instead of doing the same old time and time again? Keep putting booster pads all over the place. Keep automating everything.
I'm gonna flip that question and flip the nature of it, because I'm going to say, keep in mind, the previous game that they released for a console was so different. It was just it was almost indiscernible from any of the other previous games. And I'm going to say, will they ever choose something and stick with it for enough games to make sure that it is refined from a game structure that they know is already good and that people already like?
I hope so, because I would love for them to perfect the Lost World style of game.
I would love that too. Lost Worlds is right up my alley in style of gameplay. It just, the physics of the jump really bugged me with that game.
I'd like to see them take another stab at that style of things. Like, Lost World does solve a lot of the issues that Sonic games have. You know, like, it's slower, so you can make longer levels, and you don't have to make these alternate play styles that slow things down to pad out the game.
Can I tell you? Here's one thing, one tiny small thing that they included in past Sonic games that they did not include here, and it seems like a huge oversight.
You mean besides drift?
This game does not have the warnings to whenever there's a bottomless pit.
Oh, yeah. This game did need that in a few places, certainly.
It needed it bad.
I think if you look, there's hints of it. They try to make hints. Like they have wooden crosses, they have wooden X's.
They have red in some places, too.
On a certain area. And it's not enough of a thing for you to really notice. It's part of the problem.
I'm worried not about them not moving forward, but this game was a really bizarre regression. Like there were places where it felt like it was a regression all the way back to the GameCube, PlayStation 2 era of design choices. And that troubles me more than anything. You might chalk it up to certain design restrictions based on budget or people or time as it relates to the Nintendo Switch or time as it relates to when Sega allowed them to really fully work on it or really fully be done with it, because we know Sega's history with cutting things off at a certain point. But
I still feel like it might have just been done by a small team and they're working on something bigger.
I know that the level designers were not the ones from Generations and Colors, and I believe there's also fewer of them.
And it shows.
Well, two of them were brand new, and one of them was from Lost World.
Oh boy!
I want to see, considering that this game almost pitched itself as a Generations 2 by way of having both classic and modern Sonic together, I want to see evolution, not necessarily revolution. Because they do so much revolution that nothing has a chance to really evolve into something polished as a product. And we kind of saw Unleashed begat Colors, sort of, mostly. And Unleashed also kind of sort of begat Generations. And one could argue that Unleashed begat this, not Generations.
Interesting.
I want Green Hill Zone to die in fire.
Yes, please, no more. We've had so much of that
this year. Then we had that one stage from Lost World. Then we had Green Hill Zone and Generations. It's too much. Not to mention several of the games have pseudo Green Hill Zones anyway.
But Cory, what if it dies in sand?
Not good enough. The sand has to be on fire now.
Anyway, I think that's going to be it for us. That has been the longest I think we've ever talked about one game in our podcast. That was a really good one. But yeah, we got to go. Thank you all for joining. I like especially Cory. Thank you for joining us tonight.
If you made it to this part of the podcast, congratulations for surviving.
And that's going to do it for us. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Peace, yo.